We'll get you to respond on minimum wage and pay. You've spoken about employment. I know you want to respond. Would you like to respond?
Yes, I would like to rebut. A quick reminder. This blocking measure, I'm not opposed to it, but I want things to be sustainable. I want to exit the EU electricity market, which means spectacular increases in prices.
That means reforming, not exiting it, madam.
I want things to be sustainable, not a quick fix the way that you do it.
You voted against the capping.
In actual fact, Mr. Macron, who's picking up the tab for your famous cap is the taxpayers. So it's either one or the other. Now, we generate savings elsewhere. You're saying that your cap is more effective than my VAT reduction? No, I want to go back to regulated prices. And this is not something that you want to do, as you well know. And all of these measures will add up. I did the math. 590 euros will be gained for the French people for a VAT of fuel. But my main measure in terms of incentivizing businesses, this is what I tell them. If you increase wages by 10% up until 3 minimum wages, I will reduce employer contributions. It's a loss of revenue for the government, yes, but in real life, Mr. Macron, when you go to your bank,
we're all in real life.
In real life, you go to your bank and you want a loan. They'll ask for your basic salary. They don't care how many bonuses you receive. When you want to rent an apartment, the owner, the landlord, will ask you how much you're making, your basic pay. Because a bonus is not systematic. You may lose it. It's variable pay. So my measure will help improve the daily lives of the French.
Yes, but you're not increasing income because you're not playing on wages.
But you're not in charge of bonus pay either, Mr. Macron.
No, but I'm reducing taxes, payroll taxes and taxes. And I'm making this mechanism compulsory. You wouldn't be increasing the wages by 10%. Now, I agree. Yes, there's an issue with the bonus that it's a bit random from one year to the next. But what you're saying is also random. You can't be sure of it. No one can be convinced that this is going to happen. The president would not decide what the wages are.
I said it very clearly that this is an incentive for businesses.
So not a 10% increase?
There will be an increase.
No, you're just suggesting
you have suggested removing taxes on that bonus, but you can't make that decision for employers.
But look, you're not playing on wages. And I'm not saying I will impose bonuses. I'm just saying we're removing payroll taxes and changing taxes. You're trying to say that you will increase wages by 10% constantly. I'm just saying it's not true. Some employers will do it, others won't. If you have an increase in wages over the course of time, yes, it's an extra expense for the company, and you're improving your living standards, but it's not quite the same thing, and everyone must understand it. And I wouldn't want people to think that you'll get a 10% increase with you.
Sorry, but...
And to come back to price caps, madam, I'm delighted to hear that you're staying with it, but you voted against it when it was being discussed in Parliament.
Because I wish to radically change the system.
Yes, but look, you were voted against it.
Because I want to return to the French, a system whereby energy prices are the result of their own investments.
But that's
it's not something else. As you can clearly see, if prices are regulated the way they used to be, we would be much less sensitive to current fluctuations in energy prices, which are also the consequence of energy prices being set at EU level, as opposed to in France, as opposed to based on our own production prices, which are very low, which used to fuel competitiveness of French businesses for years. But because there have been a number of ideological errors made by our neighbors, particularly Germany that is very dependent on Russian gas, and therefore there are many variations in prices as a result of geopolitical difficulties. Allow me to finish. Thank you. I completely agree that an additional measure is necessary. And all of the measures that I just referenced are sustainable, but I also suggest totally removing VAT, so 0% of VAT on a selection of 100 basic products, whether foodstuffs or other basic products, as long as inflation is higher than growth by 1 point, which is the case at the moment.
Is it?
Yes, it happens to be the case right now.
In forecast numbers or?
No.
You disagree, Emmanuel
expectations,
Macron?
in forecast, but also the figures for Q2. Inflation is 4%, and inflation and growth is 6%, as opposed to 2.8% and 4.4% for inflation. So I do believe that this measure will be implemented very quickly. Unfortunately, actually, because this demonstrates that the situation is very difficult.
Let me welcome the fact that even though you voted against, as an MP voted against this measure, that you seem to be supporting the idea of keeping it. That's a good thing. Reforming the European market will not happen overnight. We started this, and that difference between us. You said you wanted to withdraw from the European energy market. I think this is a tremendous mistake. We are intertwined. We are interlinked. At some points in time, we import the energy that we do not produce, and because we are interconnected, we need this market. Under our presidency, we have launched this, which is why we need to reform Europe and not withdraw from it. And we need to be able to reform the electricity market so that it no longer depends on the marginal additions of gas, but on the basics of, for instance, nuclear energy. So it will take some time. And even though we have launched this reform, we still need the price cap, and we've done it, and I'm sorry that you voted against it. On VAT on foodstuffs, I offer this food check for those who are really on a tight budget, for students and some households, of course, and that seems fairer. Why? Because 0% VAT on foodstuffs is not effective. It really doesn't get much of a pass-through. It's something, according to some institutes, it's only somewhere around 13 or 15 euros a year. But when we dropped VAT on restaurants, that was a very good thing done by Mr. Sarkozy, but it didn't do much about prices. The idea was to get restaurant owners to hire again. And your measure would be beneficial to supermarket chains, not to the consumers. Plus, it's unfair. Why? Because you and I, we don't need to pay 0% VAT on this. We want the people who are really in a tight spot, who really can't pay for their weekly shop, can get some money. And a check makes much more sense than the VAT that was something that would apply to and be beneficial to people like us four here who actually don't need it. And when you look at the numbers for the Banque de France, there's less than 1 percentage points difference between inflation and growth. And you mentioned 4.5% inflation. I think we need to look at the quarterly growth, and the last one is 5.4%. I've just double-checked my numbers. So
there's a 1 point difference, so therefore the measure will apply.
No. I think your mechanism wouldn't apply today in the current circumstances. It just won't happen.
A few seconds, Madame Le Pen.
There's something that I find surprising. You're capping prices, but you could have reduced the taxes after increasing them.
We've given back more than that.
No, it took you a while before you did that.
But we did it.
Remember that you increased fuel taxes, which triggered purchasing power problems for the people and also triggered the Yellow Vests movement. And so you suspended that increase.
Yes, it was passed in 2015.
You did not remove that provision from the law. And this means you're going back to that trajectory of increasing taxes. What I want to do is give the French their money back. So you're writing checks. Let me tell you that they're based on inflation. It's always been the case. When you give handouts, when you write checks, it fuels inflation because storekeepers see that it is in their interest to maintain prices high, since they're going to get a check anyway. So you're implementing measures that may actually make the situation worse. So I'm sorry to tell you this, but the measures that you are proposing are ineffective, sometimes poorly calibrated. The €100 check that you sent to a variety of demographics, including detainees, I think it's easier to give people their money back because it is their money in the first place. There are easier ways.
Look, I can see that you're not answering my questions quite simply because you don't have an answer. But can I just say that what you've just said is actually wrong? The cap, as the numbers show, means that inflation is half what it is in Spain here in France. Quite simply, it's lower inflation than it is in our neighbours because the cap, it does not lead to inflation. That's all it is. So what you're saying is exactly the exact opposite of facts as they stand today. And again, as you've said, your measures will last over time, but are not focused. You're dropping VAT for all four of us here. But this is ineffective because it doesn't pass through onto prices.